Welcome to Dark Loops Productions Shogun Watch Crew. Now, I'm Dr. Scott Jordan, aka Zombie Scotty, cognitive psychologist, philosopher at Illinois State University. And today we've come together to discuss episode 1 of this amazing FX television program. What I'm going to do is ask each of the crew members to introduce themselves, tell you a little something about who they are, what they do, and then just a little bit about why they love this show so much. And we will start with Rio.
Absolutely. My name is Rio Shigeta. I am an actor, performer, man of several faces and 3 hearts. I am an insurance salesman by day and a dungeon master by night, and generally spend my time reading, viewing, and playing geeky things. That's me.
Awesome.
And then, yeah, the reason that I like Shogun. So I think Shogun and I have a tricky relationship that we go back and forth. I read the novel by James Clavell several years ago and had mixed feelings, which we'll explore, I think, over the series. But what I will say is that due diligence has been done. And I'm doing a little bit different of a viewing pattern this time, where I am only viewing so far as we're discussing. So I haven't seen the whole series yet. So I'm excited for the direction that the show is going. I am impressed so far.
That's so awesome. You mentioned that you're just talking what you've seen, because I'm watching it again as we do this, and the stuff they foreshadow in the first episode is just so well done. I also if I don't do this now, I'm going to forget it. The idea of, and they use the language, a man has 3 hearts, and the third one is the one he has to leave hidden if he wants to survive. Is that the heart that Miyazaki's talking about in Princess Mononoke, because he wrote that song that gets sung, and is your secret heart belongs to the world. I'm wondering, because if that's what he was saying in that song, I think that's just very profound.
Think they are related philosophies, yes. And I think that there is always there always has been, as far as I'm aware, and many facets of the same belief, that is that one has a public self and a private self. I think maybe the numbers or the imagery, the metaphors change a little bit. Sometimes it's faces, masks, hearts, whatever it is, and 2, 3, however many. But yeah, that is definitely connected, and I think the origins are the same there.
I appreciate you guys letting me do that little tangent. I thought that was pretty cool. Next, we're going to introduce Maisha Tazinorti. Maisha.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maisha, and I am recently finished my master's in cognitive and experimental psychology from ISU. Yay! So I am not a master's student anymore right now at this point.
You are a master.
I am a master. Jedi master, I guess.
Welcome to the crew.
Thank you. Well, I forgot what was the question. Like, did you ask to
what is it that you love about this show?
So, okay, so I am like Rio. I haven't watched the full show yet. I actually didn't read the book either. So I am like on I finished till episode 3 so far, and so far I'm liking it very much. And one of the reasons I'm very intrigued about this show is because I'm a big fan of like historical drama and like history of colonization and those sort of thing. And this show sort of aligns all of my interests in one setting, and big fan of Hiroyuki Sanada. So that's the reason to watch this show. So that is why I am currently right now, and I'm liking it so much.
Fantastic. Next, I'm going to introduce Kristen Farrell.
Hi, I'm Kristen Farrell. I am an actor and a realtor in Chicago. I'm also a Pure Art instructor. Why do I like the show? Well, I'm having a lot of fun with it. I think that it's visually stunning. I am really interested in the fact that, so I read this article about how the Japanese that they're speaking is almost like speaking Shakespearean. So it's been very difficult for a lot of the younger actors who haven't been experienced with that. So it's interesting to watch, because I watch a lot of other Japanese media, which is very, very modern. So this is fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. And the last but not least, Tatsu.
Hello, Tatsu Shigeta here. I am a trained cognitive neuroscientist, but I swapped my trades to become a software sales manager. Um, I I really like this show because it feels like Hiroyuki Sanada's revenge on The Last Samurai. And I say that because we know he was a producer for this show, and one of the things that he really wanted to do was actually bring kind of more accurate historical depiction of Japan. I think more broadly in Japan, if you turn on the TV, at least one of the channels is going to be historical dramas, right? Of the era. You've got your samurai, wandering the world, and doing the things. And I think he really kind of brought that to this show. And in my mind, this is probably the first of its kind that is really kind of true to that. And similar to Rio, I came into this show thinking, okay, like, is this going to be the white savior complex? Like, what's going on? And it really isn't. And it's really interesting. So, yeah, along with the excellent writing, and the themes, I love that aspect of the show.
Excellent. So what I've asked everyone to do is come up with their favorite line, favorite scene, favorite character. It doesn't really matter which one. Let us know why, tell us about it, and then we'll all discuss it, and then we'll make sure that everyone gets the opportunity to share their favorite something with everyone. So just to get the ball rolling, I'll tell you all my favorite character. And I have to tell you, I love Kashigi Yabushige.
Oh,
This guy,
took my.
is that yours?
Oh yeah,
It was
I love
mine too.
Yabushige.
I knew we would double up on that at least. That's why I have
This
a backup.
guy-
He's a well, we're talking Mononoke, and it's the monk,
Yes.
right? Like
Yes.
it's that character.
Yes.
Anyways, go ahead, Scott. Go
He's
ahead.
the cultural chaos, right? He's the
Mhm.
cultural chaos that is the foil. It's the foil for the lead character, and it's the scenes they share together are just stunning. The conversations they share together are just amazing. I love the scene where the juxtaposition of Blackthorn's where the Spanish sailor goes overboard during the storm.
Rodriguez.
And he actually throws an oar to him. And it turns out that he survived, and he's, on a rock, on a cliff, I just love the way that the English guy and Kashigi the English guy, I don't want to say manipulates him. That's not the word, but he challenges the guy in a sense where he's going to go. The guy knows he can't let him go. So he goes. And then, so on the one hand, it is this guy who can be the toughest kind of thing. And then it comes to the scene at the bottom of the cliff where Kashigi doesn't think he's going to live, and he pulls out his sword. And the profound change in the scene, the profound I don't want to use the word insight, just surprise that we see in the Englishman's character, and he talks about it later. He was going to take his life, and then they just had this wonderful conversation about what is a life, what is death, and I'll let that go. But I think Kashigi is the chaos the story needs, and I'll put it out there and ask you all to say what you want.
I mean,
Yeah,
I think you are correct. Just in that he does represent this chaos in such a hard line society of propriety of how one should appear and how one should comport themselves, right? And he is just this wild card, but at the same time, he is in a position of power. There's a great dichotomy, and I might be skipping ahead, but the reason that Yabushige is one of my favorite characters, but my second backup was Rodriguez, is because they're sort of the same. They're sort of counterparts to the culture. And yet both of them are respected in their own way, even though apparently you're supposed to fit all of these rigid rules and expectations, and yet you can be this absolute mad lad and still apparently have your place in society, which is something that I think has continued on in Japanese society of like, so long as you are able to follow the right rules, then you can also be a little bit insane. And that's
Yeah.
yeah.
If I can just quickly follow up, at least my experience, I have minimal experience with Japanese culture per se. I mean, I was there for 3 weeks, and which is not enough time, and I didn't really have private interactions with the Japanese public. Yet I did see, I don't know what I would call a sort of tolerance of dissonance, a tolerance of diversity, a tolerance of difference, where there was a place for this, there was a place for that. Men would read things on the subway, and your job was to keep your eyes off of it, because that was their space. I just saw that the kind of close-knit holism we see in the culture provides space for diversity differently than in a more individualist culture. Only that's just me. I don't have expertise per se in the Japanese culture, but that's a vibe I got.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what was really powerful is like, here is this man of chaos, this wild card, this outlaw almost, right? But he is still samurai, right? Like, if he knows he's about to die drowning, nah, we're harakiri, right? Like, we're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna die on my terms, right? So that is very much ingrained, which I think is super interesting. Where your pride will not let you die a meaningless death. You know?
Yes.
And so yeah, I think it like really set the stage to the seriousness, and like, you know, it really fosters the relationship between him and the Anjin, right? Where he was like kind of like messing with him, like, oh, like, how far is this guy actually going to take it?
Right.
Oh, okay, like,
Yeah.
he's going down the rope, like, okay, he's gonna try to save him, but no, like, this guy is serious, like, he's not messing around, and he's like, okay, I get it now. I can't just be like challenging people on the street, because these are for real people. So
Yeah. The sincerity is there, and I hope I'm not embarrassing myself, but I've been rewatching Jujutsu Kaisen, and the main character in that show is in the business of helping people to a good death. He, at the very beginning of the series, he witnesses his grandfather pass away, and then he says, "Okay, my job is to bring these people, not to bring them to a good death, but do what I can to help them reach one." So this goes back to the idea of life and death all being built into the same worldview, which comes out in this show all the time. I am going to read a few lines related to the scene we've been talking about. So I'm going to embarrass myself. I want to say the English sailor's name is Blackthorn. Does that sound right?
Yep, it is.
Blackthorn. So Blackthorn is talking to Rodriguez, and he says he risked his life to save you. And then when he was done for in the waves, he didn't fight. He could have tried, but he just turned and drew his blade. And then Rodriguez says he chose his death. What better end can a man hope for? And then Blackthorn says, "Will I die here?" Rodriguez laughs at him and says, "Likely." Yeah. And how can you just accept being powerless to this madness? And I love the way that Blackthorn's expressing this as utter madness, that you would actually control your own death. And is, "Oh, you mean to this life?" And he goes, "Okay, so Rio, I'm going to ask you to translate this for me. Zaimo Gozameson. Zaimo Gozameson. It's what Rodriguez says. One cannot resist the unseen path of nature. I don't know if that's...
ぜひもございません.
Yeah, exactly. One cannot resist the unseen path of nature. Y'all, I'm gonna make that a t-shirt. I mean, that's just amazing insight. And all we can do is accept our small part. And then Blackthorn says it's bullocks. I fought too long and hard to get here. And he said, I won't succumb to this madness. I can't. And just that juxtaposition in the language. I mean, they're expressing two completely different worldviews, but it's completely organic. You don't feel like the writer's writing it. You feel like these real... That's just, for me, an achievement. And for me, that's what I mean. There's a lot of education going on in the show.
You pointed out exactly the scene that I was trying to remember that exactly encapsulates sort of like Rodriguez's view and why he works and why Blackthorn, where he is in the story right now, doesn't. It's so funny how both sides see each other as savages, right?
Yes.
They're just out of their mind. They have no order. They're just barbaric in everything that they do. But again, it's both cultures, I think, are cultures that actually are very concerned about status and social interaction. I mean, I can't say that I have a whole lot of knowledge about British history and how things might have been at the time, but I know there was a monarchy. I know there is a hierarchical system. I know that, you know, social niceties and graces are very important. Same in Japan. Right.
Yeah.
And they just appear slightly different. And just that little difference makes it complete chaos.
Yeah,
which, I mean,
it's
again,
fantastic.
the same with the conflict of Christianity and Catholicism.
Yes.
With the Portuguese and Blackthorn being a Protestant, and how the others are just mad.
Yes.
How could you worship that God in your way as opposed to mine?
Oh man.
It's funny.
Yeah.
They want to go ahead.
Two sides of the same coin, you know. I mean, especially when it comes to Christianity, I've always felt that way. Growing up Catholic, I always found it really hilarious, actually, that you know, parts of the world would fight over who was right about Christianity. Like, it's the same exact thing. Like, what are you fighting over? But in that scene, I found it really interesting. The first thing I thought when he said, "But you know, I worked too hard." And in my head, I just went, that Western hubris. Like it it was like right there. But it was honest, you know, it's how he felt. Yep. But I was like, isn't that funny how even in this time period, this is something that like, no, I deserve it. I deserve this. It's mine. I deserve to get what I need and what I want. You know, it's not for the greater good. I'm not going to fight for somebody else. I don't deserve to die here.
Very few of the Japanese characters use the idea of I, right? They just don't, because their language is imbued with otherness. They are the people that they're with, in a sense. So they don't need to say I, right? Because everybody knows they're talking. And so whoever wrote this script really understands, I think, cultural differences between, at least at the time portrayed, the two characters.
I'm in my infancy of learning Japanese. I've been like doing Duolingo for like 5 years and have, you know, baby language. But one thing I do know is that watashi, I, is very rarely used. It just, you don't use that word a lot. Even when you are, you know, introducing or talking about what you are doing, you leave that word out of the conversation. Once you've stated it's me, like I'm doing this, and then the rest of the conversation, it doesn't have watashi in it, which is very interesting.
You can catch several instances of Blackthorn talking about, well, I will survive. I will be the one to change. It's this sort of exceptionalism of like, my goals are my own. And conversely, like, look at Toranaga, who is and likely will be the most important person in Japan, and never is he saying this is what I do.
Yeah.
Only in the context of what has been put upon him, what his responsibilities are. But even that are to others. It is to his land, to his people, to his ward. It's always in the context of other, as opposed to I'm going to be the shogun. You know, and that is something that we see later on in Japanese society. I think like shonen manga and anime are all about like I'm going to be the pirate king, right? But it is still a cultural foundation. I think that like the societal collective is the purpose, not the individual.
Oh man, that the only time I remember hearing Toranaga say "I" was when he said, "I don't want to be shogun." Right. So you know, he was
Not me.
he was exactly. This is such a great conversation. I'm going to ask someone else to go ahead and tell me favorite scene, character, favorite line, whatever.
I feel like I already gave mine, which is Rodriguez and Yabushige. Just the chaotics. I do love them. Although I guess if I were to give a third character that I do like, I like Hiromatsu. Hiromatsu's the older guy and sort of advisor to Toranaga. I like that he's sort of the opposite, where he is very much within the system and proper, but he has a sense of humor. He has dimension. You know, when he's talking to Toranaga, he's still like, you're still a snot-nosed kid. Yep. Don't talk to me. Don't step to me, boy. Yep. But also, you will probably be shogun. But then, like, the absolute power that he oppresses Yabushige with when they're talking about the black ship. Oh, you found this, right? Okay, we'll be collecting that. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought your loyalty was to Toranaga.
I love it.
And
he just clicks the sword real quick, like,
and
I
his
thought
whole
you were
crew
one of us.
are like, And Yabushige does some real quick calculations. He's like, yeah, of course. We were just, cleaning it up for you real nice.
Just teasing, man.
Love it.
Yeah,
I gotta say, Tadanobu Asano's performance so far has been brilliant. Really having fun watching him act.
And the character you mentioned, Toda, if you're gonna be someone like Toranaga, you need someone like Toda Hiromatsu. You need someone who knows the world, who can dress you down as long as it's in private. Who can tell you your expectations are not working, and then in a total class act show up and tell Kashigi, play a little Game of Thrones language on him, right? In other words, this is power talk there. The word "I" never comes out. It's just you use all these larger scale relationships and you get what you want, right? It's just brilliant. Yeah. Kristen, did I interrupt you? I'm sorry. We started.
No.
Okay.
No, I was just going to dovetail off of my favorite character also is Rodriguez. I do love Vasco Rodriguez. I think Nestor Carbonell is just a fabulous actor. He's wonderful in everything that he does. And so it makes me happy when I see him in things. And it took me a minute or two to even realize that's who it was, because he was doing such a good job as this character. And he's usually just like this very handsome man on the screen. And he's playing this like very scraggly guy. And so, I love everything that you have both said about him. But also one of my favorite things is his voiceover at the end of the episode, where he says, he's talking about the three hearts. But at the end of that speech, he says, maybe you'll live long enough to find out. He's like, you're here for a reason. Maybe you'll live long enough to find out. And I found that really, really poignant, and I really enjoyed that moment. It gave me a little bit of like goosebumps, and made me excited to watch more of the show. And then if I have to pick another character, though I don't think she really shines until the second episode. I love Dayoin, Lady Io. She is, I think, though I can't remember whose spouse she is, but I believe she's a wife of someone. But she's a sassy older lady who just is having fun.
Are you thinking of Kiri?
Nope.
Kiri no Kata?
She's played by the actor's name is Akko.
Mm-hmm.
She's
the former emperor's wife.
Yes.
The lady in sort of the habit, the gray.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
She had a gold kimono on.
You're
in the
thinking
second
of Kiri no
episode.
Kata.
No, I think
Oh
it's,
yeah.
Am I?
Because
Lady Io has like the head covering, so she kind of looks like a monk.
Okay.
Mhm.
So then no, not that lady. And I'm sorry.
Kiri no
I can't-
Kata.
I was trying to
Yep.
I was trying to find her name and I couldn't, and then this lady
I'm
looked
sorry.
like she might be the same person. Because she was of the same age bracket.
Mm.
And the person I'm looking for, I don't think has anything on IMDb. Anyway, I love her in the second episode. So she's sassy. She's a little bit older. She's, she gives it right back to whoever's given it to her, and she's still respected.
Yep.
And I can't wait to see more. She's got 5 episodes, and I can't wait to see more of her.
The reason you might not find a lot about her is because she's prolific in Japanese media, as is Hiromatsu. A lot of the actors that they've used are prolific Japanese actors. I mean, and these are separate from people like Hiroyuki Sanada and Tadanobu Asano. These are people that have sort of crossed over into American media, your Ken Watanabe's, but these are more of the actors that would be in those historical dramas, Jidaigeki. I think that the actor who's playing Hiromatsu is great. He plays Ultra Father in Ultraman, the father of all Ultramen. So classic actor. And I think there's definitely something to be said about being able to see these actors who are very well known in their own regard in Japan on the screen. And this is sort of a struggle that I've had watching Japanese inspired media, being like, well, what does the representation look like? How accurate is it? How much of the cast and crew and creators and executives are Japanese? But what I will say is that if not here, we're just not going to see them. So sometimes I have to swallow my pride and say, hey, this is what we get. And we get to see these great actors actually on screen in an American prestige production.
Can you say her name one more time?
The character
or the actor?
The character is Kiri no Kata, and the actress is Yoriko Doguchi.
Yeah, and like Kiri no Kata is like it's like formally the person of Kiri, right?
Right.
And I think that's there's several katas, right? There's Ochiba no Kata, there's Kiri no Kata, and those are, if I'm not mistaken, it's either your wife or your concubine. You get a certain title, right?
And I think she was the concubine to the former shogun.
Yep. Yes, that is
and
her.
I remember liking her character even in the original novel. She was a Spitfire. So I definitely picked up what she was putting down.
Well,
Same page.
she's not the Cersei Lannister of this story, because she does have a soul. But man, she knows everything that's going on. She knows the game.
Spider.
She knows the system, man. And I can't say anything about cultural accuracy, but when they do like practically still shots of her face when a meeting's ending and you're looking at what she would, I don't know if people would actually behave like that, but on screen, it's simply stunning. The facial expression, the stillness, absorbing it all. No, she's power. She's very powerful.
Her picture on IMDb is a very young picture from when she's a young actress. That's why I didn't think it was her. It's not current. Yep. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, hey, Maisha, how about you? Favorite line, favorite character, favorite scene?
Okay, so I was not jumping in because all of you guys were like talking such good things about the characters, and some of you actually picked out the characters that I wanted to talk about. Like I really liked Rodriguez a lot. So and already talked about and Yabushige too. So I think he's not my favorite character, but I find him funny and I like to watch him in the scene. It's like John Blackthorne. So when I first started the show, I thought it would be a white savior complex sort of thing because I just get scared when it's like American media and they try to do a East Asian or South Asian like story and they kind of put this white character in it and they just becomes like the center of everything. So I kind of had that doubt on me, but like I started watching and I kept watching on, and as the series went by, I kind of felt like John Blackthorne is kind of the Joker in the show. Like he's just there, he's so clueless, and he doesn't understand like what's happening, and he comes from this such like British background, such European Western point of view that when he's in the Japan's, according to him, so he is very confused about their culture and why they are the way they are, and he's not able to comprehend those things. And what I like about is that Toranaga kind of sees him as an entertainer, and he is not giving him the ship, or like he is not. He is kind of like not. I'm not gonna say using him, but also like keeping him at close to like deal with his situation. So which kind of makes him as like a target, not as someone who will save them. So I think that aspect of the show kind of like touched me, or kind of like made me think of it in a better way. And that's probably I'm like watching it so far and I'm enjoying it. I don't know if I was able to, because I'm still pretty new to the whole thing, because my introduction to samurai is through, or the Japanese history is through anime. So I am like also pretty new about the cultural aspects of it and what happened, what's the actual history happened at that time. So, but as a person who's recently getting into that, I'm really enjoying, and I think John Blackstone's character and Cosmo Jarvis also played a really good role as very clueless British man in the samurai land, and you can see it in his face as he is getting surprised in every situation he's in, and he's kind of feeling clueless and kind of like, okay, women are treated like this here, and like this is people commit seppuku just whenever they want to. These things like he never saw it in his upbringing. So that aspect of the show is very nice to see, I think.
Oh, and let's make it clear, Toranaga is using Blackthorne to great effect.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
it's not just using him for a micro event. He is using him to wield power in ways that other people can't see, man. The very first scene we meet Toranaga is when his son brings him the falcon. The falcon captures a bird, and he says, "Dad, it's a fantastic bird." And his dad says, "Yeah, he flies with the sun behind him. You can't even see him. You don't even know he's there." That's who this guy is, right? I mean, he says, "Go." His boss, his lead general, Torohiro Satsu, goes to do the work, but everybody knows or doesn't know that it's Toranaga pulling the strings. And no, it's so well done, and it's. Maisha, I appreciate your comments about, how they're dealing with Britishness, how they're dealing with colonialism. I have read into Protestant Catholic history simply because Protestantism was the form of Christianity in which Martin Luther objected to the idea that you could sell salvation, that there had to be a human being between you and your relationship with God. So Protestantism was a revolution in Christianity where everybody was believed to have their own personal relationship with God. And it doesn't surprise me then that you see the Portuguese there with the church kind of vibing into the collectivism of Japan, while they're, of course, what's the word? Taking stuff from it. I lost the word. It's not the word abuse, but they're colonizers, right? And but it's easier for them to get into the collectivist vibe, but not for the Protestant. No, man, it's I, and you see it everywhere, and you see it on his face. And they don't, in this show, what just blows me away is they don't just say one's good, one's bad, blah 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 blah. There's an incredible scene where the young woman has to being told she has to take her son's life, right? Her son has to die because her husband had go ahead.
No, I was like Fumi. She is actually like my recently she's getting I'm liking her a lot. Fuji-sama,
I like her character. Yeah, I like her character as well.
Yep.
So I'll tell you this scene, and then we'll make sure we continue to talk about her, because this is also one of the scenes where Mariko makes her entrance, and she's there with this woman who's being told that her son has to die. And then I got to read you these lines because it's just the best. It says, "I know you feel the pull of death. I've felt it too. However, it is a mercy you must reject." That is just so contradictory to Western thinking, right? That somehow taking your life is a mercy. But it's not just being said as poetry for a white audience's sake. It's being said to express a level of collective aboutness. And then she says, "I'm not." Oh, then Fuji says, "I'm not strong like you, Mariko." And she puts a knife to her throat and she said, "I can't remain in this world without purpose." Damn, these are nights, right? Because her purpose, their kids are purpose in that sense. And then she says, if he's ordered you to live, then that is your purpose. So she tries to make this woman feel better about her son passing away. And then what does she do? When she goes back to her room by herself, she pulls out her cross and she has a conversation with the individualistic God of the West. And she says, "God," I don't remember exactly what she says. So what I thought was brilliant about that scene was while she's doing her collectivist self in the presence of everybody else, there's a suffering that she feels comfortable sharing with this Christian God. Now, that's not to say good, bad. I just think it's incredibly good writing, because I think she does consider herself Christian. So I was blown away. As you see, I took pictures and I didn't read them well. But if that starts a conversation, cool. If not, not. But
I mean, as we know, she has to be an outlier because she's the one that's going to eventually end up with John Blackthorne, right? Their views have to align. They have to be the bridge between the cultures. If we're looking at this sort of, it is a Western written story. I'm not gonna, say that it's so low as to just be just a love story. There is a love story that will develop among all the political intrigue and historical drama that is. But that's what we're looking at, right? Like it can't just be a stereotypical culture versus another stereotypical culture and clash. We want to see, well, what are the similarities? How are they similar? Kind of like what we're talking about with Yabushige and Rodriguez. John Blackthorne and Mariko have similar pasts. I think we end up finding out a little bit more about Blackthorne and his history, and then about Mariko and what happened that we allude to already in the first episode, that she has a dark past. What Fuji's saying about, "I can't go on, I'm not as strong as you," after whatever happened to her, which we're going to find out soon. That's where we sort of have to find the connection. The whole point is, I mean, we have to have an entry point, right? Whenever we're exploring a completely foreign land, we have to be able to see maybe this is the wrong expression, but the humanity in the other side. In order for it to be intriguing, we have to be able to relate to one side and our side. And this is an American show. I'm going to say we are seeing it from an American perspective. It is outside in. But we are immersed in such a way that is a little bit different than a lot of other shows that you'll see, in that we feel like we are intruding, that we are in the wrong place. and we are the wrong people to be there. That's what we are relating to John Blackthorne, right? In that case. And Mariko, while initially adversarial, we know she will eventually find the connection and become the bridge between the two, that even living in a collectivist culture, being a highborn woman, that there are things that you can think and do and become that are in sync with this British man, this British pilot traveling the world to an unknown country with his values, and how he meets it by somewhat adapting, we'll say, to the culture that he finds, right?
Yeah, I found that scene was an exploration of her sense of loneliness and her sense of being an outlier. And because, well, I've seen the whole series, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but this sense of being, well, she says, you know, I've wanted to experience the mercy of taking my own life many times, right? So there's obviously suffering that's going on with her that makes her feel estranged, and that estrangement probably makes her more open, or, you know, vulnerable, whatever the word we want to use.
I find it interesting that it's said in the second episode, but she talks about, she's asked why, when she started learning Portuguese, which is 14 years ago, as long as I've had my faith, 14 years. And 14 years and 3 months was how long her father passed away. And so it's interesting that those two coincide, and how vulnerable she was at that moment to start believing in another religion,
well said.
Following another culture. Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. I'm interested to see if that is delved into a little bit more.
Anything else anyone wants to say about episode 1? You guys mentioned Fuji. Does someone want to continue to talk about Usami Fuji?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should just highlight some of the lesser characters, at least in this episode, right? Like, Fuji is going to become a big character. She's tasked with becoming the consort of Blackthorne. She hates the idea. He thinks it's ridiculous, right? But nevertheless, like, once she is put in that household, like, she runs the household, right? And that's the same thing as Yabushige, you know, like, being ready to stab himself in the heart. It's the same thing, where she is literally ready to cut her throat, if she could, but because she accepts that task and that fate, she is ready to play the role, and she is ready to not only play the role, but to back Blackthorne in any situation, because she is his consort and she serves, right? And we don't get to see much of it in episode 1, so I don't want to expand on that. But it is interesting. Of the same household, I do love Muraji. The old man. You always gotta have the old man that doesn't talk in Japanese stories, you know, who shows you by doing. Yeah, we'll see some of that. And also Ochiban no Kata, which translates to the person of the falling leaf. That is the consort to the late emperor, so the mother to the emperor to be, is going to become a more prominent character, although not much in this first episode. So that's also a stay tuned. We also see Father, I believe Alvito, who is probably the most reasonable priest amongst the Portuguese, right? He's the one that taught Mariko English. He's the one that is the translator in her place if she's not there. will become a interesting character as well. So
We see a lot
Yeah.
more of him in episode 2.
I love
Mhm.
the scene where the where the Portuguese priests, two of them, the older, the younger one, and then Rodriguez are talking, and Rodriguez had given him the journal that they found, Blackthorn's journal they found on the ship that indicates all the looting they'd been doing. And then the younger priest says, "Yeah, but Toranaga's going to want a thorough description of what's in this book, and he's going to want to see all of it." Then he points him to one of the back pages. Oh my God. Just right. It's all Game of Thronesy, man. It's just right there.
Mhm.
You thought it was evidence against them, huh? Well, brother, it's all there. And I like the way that character makes at the table, right? A little bit of chaos, a little old order, a little newer order, right? And they're all just
Mhm.
making a stew that's just friggin' awesome to watch. And the acting, man, it's just some of the best group ensemble acting I've seen in a long time. Yeah. Anyone else?
And
Go ahead.
it is impressive to see that, considering I feel like there's more than just, the director and the cast in this production.
Mhm.
I need to do a little bit more research, I think, but I think the presence of Hiroyuki Sanada in this production is much bigger than we can even know. From what I'm finding already is that, he's been vocal coaching for people in the way that they pronounce and the cadence of the lines to be a little bit more historically accurate, the way in which one either, wears a certain obi or holds their hand in a certain position. From what I'm seeing, he was also on set in the scenes where he wasn't there, just to sort of keep an eye on things and to assist in how he could. And like you said, Tatsu, it's the samurai's revenge. Like, we've seen too many films in the last couple of decades that are just uh, I'm not going to name them. You all know which they are, right? um and I think we also we address sort of the similarities that we're seeing with Game of Thrones in this show. I think that some of the differences come in the juxtaposition.
Yeah.
And I can't speak too informedly about Game of Thrones because I didn't watch a whole lot of the show. I did read the novels that are available. And I think that there's a moment that sort of, I think, encapsulates the difference where it's Yabushige, of course it is, sitting at breakfast with Omi, I think, and they're talking about the goings on of the night before. And basically Yabushige just executed a man in one of the most cruel ways that I could possibly imagine, boiling him alive, just to see what would happen if if it would inspire him in some way to be like, oh, okay, I have a new understanding of death. And what does he do at breakfast? He says to Omi, he's like, I want you to write a poem expressing the way that he died. And Omi thinks for a second and basically writes this very proper yet beautiful poem about the end of a man's life and how he screamed until he met his demise. And he's like, good, let's see.
Yeah.
There's something so absurd, but I think there is comedy in that. It is supposed to be comedic. I mean, what you were saying, Maisha, about Blackthorn being this sort of fish out of water the whole time. It's funny when he stands up butt naked and these ladies come in and they're dressing him and he's like, that's too tight. She smacks his hand. No, that's the way that it is. It's go ahead.
No, I don't think anybody's. Go ahead.
I thought it's got levels. It's got levels, it's got dimension, it's got three hearts. And I think that we're gonna start discovering the different layers.
Yeah.
We're only in episode 1. We're seeing only the surface. We're alluding to the deeper purposes. And I think episode 2, we're gonna start talking about the different levels of politics. We touched on it already a little bit, I think, about how Toranaga is using Blackthorn, but also Blackthorn thinks he's using Toranaga.
Yeah.
And Ishido thinks he's using Toranaga and
Yeah,
Blackthorn.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the Portuguese think they're using the Japanese. And
Yep.
Yeah.
it's like just like layer on layer, but it's true that like Blackthorn does have an influence on Toranaga. We're going to talk about the second episode.
Yeah.
And things happen because of him. He is sort of this match that lights something much bigger.
I absolutely love the scene that you mentioned about breakfast and the poem. I recorded the poem. His eyes, it says, his eyes were just the end of hell, all pain, articulate. Now, what was brilliant about the use of articulate is when Yamaguchi described the death the night before, and he says, "Oh, he went crazy. He was completely inarticulate." I don't know if the younger man heard him at that moment, but and then the Yamaguchi doesn't even get upset if he's been contradicted. He's buoyant. He just goes with the flow in ways that are like chaos. We'll wait till we talk about the last episode, because there's so many things they say in this first episode that just play out brilliantly at the end. So I'll stop there. But I just love it. I gotta say, this is probably the best show I've seen since Deadwood, in terms of putting a large scale project together over 10 hours plus. This is just stunning. Anyone else? Final comments, final words?
I feel like we would be remiss not to address the highly sexual sort of promiscuous scene with Yabushige and Takemaru and the courtesan whose name escapes me at the moment.
Kiku.
Was it Kiku? It was Kiku.
Yeah,
Kiku.
Kiku.
Yeah. I guess I'm sort of curious as to how that was perceived, because I feel like I sort of have an understanding of what that was and what happened, just sort of from my understanding and background, but I'm wondering how that came off, I guess.
If you've seen Pulp Fiction, I'm Marvin in the back seat. I don't even have an opinion.
I mean,
okay, all right.
No, I do have an opinion.
I rarely see you back off from a comment.
Please, someone else. Go ahead.
I guess I would say, I think as Americans, Westerners, we're so desensitized to anything like that like I watched that episode twice and I had to go, "What are you talking about?" "Oh yeah, that's right." So yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. It didn't even register.
No.
Oh.
I mean, to me, like, knowing the history of Japan and like how like pleasure, right, in that sense is treated, right? Which you still have 3 hearts, you still have to have your whatever eightfold fence. But it is very much accepted that you go and take care of your desires outside of your responsibilities. And I think, if nothing else, it was just kind of introducing that aspect of the culture that exists, is accepted, right? Pretty much to this day, right?
It is
in Japan. Yeah. Like it is present. There is a place for it. And we'll see that how that comes to be, like in terms of how the Japanese perceive sex workers, right? And like where their place are, how they got started. We're going to see that. So
almost straight up tell you, I love the scene. And I thought it was just another example of the writers saying, "Oh, so you thought we were going to show you a Protestant TV show? No, we're not going to show you a Protestant TV show. We're going to show you a politically a show that has nothing to do with political correctness. It has to do with showing a culture." And if you're going to show anything, it's always beautifully ugly. It's always when we pretend that it's purely beautiful that we make crap TV. So I loved that. First of all, it explored more of his character, right? It took him by surprise. And what did he do? He went with the flow. He got curious, and dude lets himself be run by curiosity. He's chaos. He's going to go with it. So for me, it was, of course, it was, an erotic scene. And at the same time, it was more explanation of his character as well as Japanese culture. And I didn't feel myself experiencing it like a Protestant, right? I didn't feel myself experiencing it like that shouldn't happen or anything along those lines. And that doesn't mean I experienced it as if that should happen, right? There just wasn't a judgy component of how if someone was telling me a story and I wanted to see and hear more. So I thought it was amazing.
Cool. I think to the average Western audience, the point of episode 1 was to leave you like completely uncomfortable, right? You like all the uncomfortable things. If anything, you think that the Japanese are they're totally gonna be the enemies, right? Like they're gonna be the bad guys. Like, oh, like what is this? Boy, are they so wrong.
I mean, I do think Americans are slowly waking up to the fact that us colonizers are all bad guys. So
no,
I said it. I did, and it's okay.
You did it. It's out there.
I said it.
No, but we are living in a time where this show would have come out, and I would have made a bet it would have been politically correct in the sense that it would have been completely anti-American or anti-white, and it's not. It's showing two cultures as they are, and hard. It's just hard as hell to write something you want to love, but you have to let it be beautifully ugly. That's just hard to do. And for me, they did it in Deadwood. Milch did it in Deadwood, and these guys are doing it here in Shogun, and I'm here for it.
Well, and kind of what you were saying about this show coming out now and in the climate, there was a version of Shogun that was released in 1980. I think it might be interesting.
Like, a miniseries or a TV show or something? Or
I believe it was a TV show. I haven't seen it,
Roots,
but it might be interesting to compare because I don't think it would be the same show. I'm not going to put that on us right now, but
no.
I don't think there'll even be Japanese people in that. Honestly, I'm afraid. I'm afraid to even. No,
you might be surprised. One of my favorite actors of all time, Toshiro Mifune, is in.
Okay.
And he played the Shogun. Well, he played Toranaga. And
okay. All right.
I don't know. It might be interesting. Just, if
maybe
not us, maybe
it was okay.
Those of you watching, if you have the time, go watch it. Let us know. I'm curious.
Maybe that'll be our homework. Maybe we'll have another after party episode where we watch that and compare.
Okay.
Maybe
why not?
See what happens. All right.
Okay.
Anything else? Final thoughts, final words.
Just a tidbit from me. There's a connection between I'm not thinking of his name, the actor who played Rodriguez, Kristen
Nestor Carbonell.
Nestor Carbonell and Hiroyuki Sanada have a little connection in that they are in Shogun together, and they were in a show back in the early to late aughts. Can any of you guess what that show was?
No.
Are you lost?
Oh yeah,
of course. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I know.
We're in Lost.
Hiroyuki Sanada was in it.
That's right.
Smaller roles, but still they were both in it.
Yeah. with his beautiful eyelashes. Oh.
Right, those eyelashes.
I mean, he looks like he's wearing eyeliner all the time. He's just
He does.
A stunning man.
I just saw him.
Right.
I just saw him in the morning show. He's great.
So good. He's so good in it. That show
Yeah.
also that show is very good. If you haven't watched it, please watch it.
Yeah,
It's so
it's
good.
a great show.
Fabulous.
It's a great show.
Fabulous.
It's the renaissance of Jennifer
Aniston.
Aniston.
Oh, good
Yeah,
for her.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Steve
Yeah.
Carell is excellent in it.
Yeah, he's hard.
Mhm.
It's hard for him not to do a good job at something. He's amazing.
Yeah.
I just want to let everybody know that this is the second podcast that I've been involved in on Dark Loops that is basically an offshoot of a series called Why Is It So Good? And in Why Is This So Good? We talk about it in one shot. But there's so much goodness in this show that we can't do it in one shot. So the last time we did this was One Piece because it was just so good. You couldn't do it in one shot. And we're doing the same thing here. And I appreciate my colleagues and friends here for joining me for this. We're probably going to try to do 2 episodes of the show. We'll see. We're not on any time challenge here. So if you're watching, listening, please feel free to write in to comment on what we've said, ask us questions, tell us what we got wrong, tell us what we got right. And before we check out here, I want to give my colleagues the opportunity to tell you where you can find them on social media. And we'll start with Maisha.
Okay, I'm gonna say the same thing that I say every time that I am currently a grad student, and I do not have any public profile like that way, but you can find me on LinkedIn mostly. That's the most public thing I use. Most of my social media accounts are private. So my LinkedIn is my same name is the Maisha Dasin Arthi.
Very cool. How about you, Kristen?
Whereas Maisha is private, I have like multiple ways to find me. Fun Size Feral on Instagram, also Kristen Farrell Realtor. And then if you want to follow Rio and my travels or our eating around the world, you can follow Shigeta Around the World or Eat Way Around the World with me.
No, that's great stuff. You guys posted a lot after New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
We did, yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of good food there.
We
about you,
need
Todd?
another trip.
Oh,
Yep.
We'll
gotta
talk
travel.
about that when we're off air. How about you, Rio?
You can find me on most social media outlets at I Know Rio, spelled like it sounds. I guess you could also Google me. I take no responsibility for what you find.
Fantastic. How about you, Tatsu?
I'm gonna take the same route as Maisha actually, because I didn't think about it, but yeah, I guess most of my social media profiles are private. So find me on LinkedIn, T-Shigeta.
There you go. And I can't leave the presence of Tatsu without mentioning the fact that at the end of all the Premier League matches this weekend, 20-some% of fans were watching the Man City celebration. 50+% of fans were watching Jurgen Klopp's goodbye speech. That says everything you need to know about the Premier League.
Yeah, talk about Shogun, right?
Absolutely.
That was my Shogun.
Absolutely. No, I think we should bring it to coach
still
the
mourning here.
Americans men's team. All right, that would be fantastic. It's kind of rock and roll we need.
I love that. It's never gonna
Well,
happen,
you can
but I
find
love
me. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
that. No, go ahead.
No. So you can find me at YouTube, Dark Loops Productions. Like I said, feel free to write comments on the post here. This will all be audio, also be an audio podcast. So feel free to comment there. You can send emails to darkloopsproductions@gmail.com. We love to discuss questions. And so there it is. From all of us to all of you, big hugs. And remember,
Shogun Kantai! ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。
Hey,
bye-bye.
Bye.
bye.